Om Kayena vacha manasyendrayirva Bhutyatmanava prakriti swabhava Karomi adyat sakalam paresma Narayana samarpayami Narayana samarpayami.
Dear Seeker of Truth, welcome. This is a very auspicious moment. We are going to talk about Bhakti. Bhakti, divine love. So we are going to talk about Bhakti as the essence of all spiritual paths, as the soul of all spiritual paths, and also as a path in itself, Bhakti Yoga. So this is a work made by sage Shandilya, the Shandilya Bhakti Sutras. Not much is known about this Shandilya, only that he was a sage, a God-realized being that gone through many other philosophies and finally got to the nectar-like Bhakti as the soul of it all. So Sage Shandilya had a very intellectual approach also. He was concerned about getting from the different authorities, the different scriptures, the validity, the importance of bhakti as a spiritual path. So he gathered that all and shared it. So may you all find divine love in your hearts. May you all be blessed by this auspiciousness. May you all find God. Moving on, Chandilya Bhakti Sutras, Sutra 17. Now, with these expositions, the contradictions regarding Gyan and Bhakti are solved. So this was the discussion, the previous discussion. So now, without any contradictions, it is clear that Bhakti is independent and causeless, whereas Gyan has got no value without being subservient to Bhakti. And that is correct. Gyan, knowledge, has no value if it's not subservient to Bhakti. Because without being subservient to Bhakti and humbleness being the basis of Bhakti also, this knowledge only creates pride, self-importance, vanity, and all of this. And this is countering the spiritual path. Therefore, knowledge devoid of bhakti cannot serve the purpose of attaining final beatitude in life. Yes. Bhakti is the means as well as the end in itself. So bhakti, the path of bhakti, is complete. The means for bhakti we will see further on, but it's a complete path in itself. The highest pursuit of human life is attained through bhakti alone, because only through devotion God is known, and that is the highest pursuit in life. Sutra 18. If bhakti is applied to or understood to mean devotion to any other entity except the Supreme Being, then it is a degraded form of bhakti. To wit, offering worship to any sundry god or goddess, or any ordinary deity except the Supreme Being, Brahm, not Brahman, Brahm, which is God, Supreme Being, is not the true form of bhakti. So what is stating clearly here is that only devotion to the Supreme Being is considered bhakti. You may have lots of devotion, but if it is from some other deity, god or goddess, then it's not the same. It's not a true form of bhakti. because it doesn't bring liberation. Bhakti means devotion, surrender, and love for the Lord God. But the verse clarifies that the object of love should be the Supreme Being, the Lord of this world, the God who is supreme and no other God. Well, kind of repeating. Worshipping with reverence and faith to another deity is not bhakti. That bhakti is never spiritual practice because it cannot bring the spiritual rewards one expects from it: liberation, emancipation, salvation for the soul. And usually it's about more of worldly desires. But even if it isn't, you're asking something to that which cannot give. So the real bhakti, the one that leads to real bhakti, is for the Supreme Being alone. It doesn't matter the name it presents itself, or if it's just Supreme Being, it's for that alone. Ramcharitmanas, Lord Ram says, if one calls oneself my true devotee, but expects anything from others than me, then say, what right does he have to claim this privileged status of being my devotee? What more can I say except this is a principle I follow? So, if the one is a true devotee of God, he doesn't expect anything from anyone else, but from God only. And even what comes from others, he's not expecting, but he accepts as something from God, good or bad, understanding that God is taking care, and that which is bitter that God brings is as good as that which is sweet, if not even better. But God is taking care because it depends on what I need to let go to be able to establish, to purify myself and establish myself in full unalloyed devotion. So if you call yourself a devotee of God and expect anything from others, then you don't have that right to call yourself devotee of God. Thus, those who are wise and erudite worship me alone because they know that all kinds of worship result in delusion and countless miseries. So all other kinds of devotions result in delusion because it keeps you trapped in the world of transmigration, and suffering because of that also. So the wise one, the erudite ones worship me alone. Therefore, taking everything into consideration and weighing all pros and cons, those who are experts and wise in their knowledge of the scriptures prefer to have bhakti for me and worship me alone, even if they have access to jnana, gnosis, metaphysics, and theology. So even if they have access to knowledge, they prefer to be devoted to God. In the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, it says, those who have bhakti inside them, but use this virtue to worship gods and other than the Supreme Being in the hope of fulfillment of certain desires, then though it is true that they are worshipping me in these forms, yet this kind of way is not proper to worship me, since such worshippers are deluded under the influence of Maya, because they do not recognize who I am. They fall back into the cycle of transmigration instead of breaking free from it and attaining deliverance. This is because those who worship other gods go to them, and all these gods are said to preside over different aspects of creation. They are assigned to them, but surely not the supreme state of beatitude and blessedness. Only those who worship me, the Supreme Being, come to me to get final deliverance. So those who worship other gods go to them, and in the same principle, those who worship the Supreme Being go to him. True bhakti is direct devotion to the Supreme Lord and not to his many other forms. because this later bhakti may fulfill worshippers' worldly desires, but it will not give emancipation or salvation. So all these deities, all these gods and goddesses, they are the forms of the Supreme Being, of course, but they are presiding over certain aspects of creation. They are limited. Only the Supreme Being can grant liberation, final emancipation. True bhakti doesn't seek anything in return, like we've seen in the other before. This level of purity wants nothing in return. As long as it wants something in return, is not pure yet. The devotee doesn't ask this or that. His sacrifices are not investments that seek recognition. They are just means to love God, to be closer to God, to intensify that connection to God, to purify his love, to reach God. A true devotee leaves himself at the care of God. So God is taking care and he surrenders himself to God, gives himself to the care of God. Again, it doesn't matter if God sends him to good circumstances or bad. He is surrendered and accepting everything as God's favor, God's blessing, to remove the burden of his sins, to make him purer, and to reach God sooner. The Svestashara Upanishad says, "He who has supreme devotion towards God and has towards God, so towards the Guru, to such a great one, all these things so far declared reveal themselves." So the one who has this supreme devotion towards God and the same devotion he has towards his Guru, then he reached that final realization, then God reveals himself to that devotee. Sutra 19. So just making an observation before in this previous sentence. So the Guru is, if he is a self-realized being, he is God, because his lower self has been dissolved into God. And he is a means to achieve God. So the one who has this perfect devotion towards the Guru has towards God. God reveals himself to him. So saying this means that the Guru is also not a means to an end. If he is enlightened, if he is a knower of God, then he is the end also. But this is put like this, divided, because many times there's the confusion of the body and of the person of the Guru. And that's not the Guru. The words may come from the Supreme Being, but Supreme Being is not that body. But the one who has that purity of devotion towards God and towards the Guru finds God for sure. So Sutra 19. However, yoga, concentration, is both for Gyan and Bhakti. So meditation, concentration of mind, purification, focusing on liberation is equally important for attainments of success both in the Jnana Yoga path as well as in Bhakti, as it helps the spiritual aspirant to concentrate his mind and focus his various faculties on the spiritual path. So sometimes many practices are divided. There are the practice of the Jnana Yoga, the practices of the Karma Yoga, the practices of the Hatha Yoga. But these are very important practices, all of them. And when they all are serving Bhakti, serving devotion towards God, they become very powerful. So all of these practices, when we say bhakti yoga, it's better. So there is a tendency to interpret that it means literally that it is better than the other two. The other two are useless. No, that's not what it means. With devotion, with the purpose of devotion, they are all paths towards God. And that is, they are all sacred. And many of these practices, especially meditation, is very important for all of this. Because without it, in the times that we are going, it's very difficult. We will see that what meditation means, what are the types of meditation, and in this category of bhakti, with the devotional aspect behind it. But it is very important. To purify the mind, to clean up the sins, all of this, it is very important. Because the minds have become too gross, too filled with sins and offenses that we will go later also. So it is very difficult without these tools. Since yoga is a branch of Gyan, of the path of knowledge, and Gyan can be a means to bhakti, then yoga can also be a means to bhakti. Can. Because if it is practice with the purpose of liberation, then it can be a means for bhakti. But these days it is practiced for different other reasons. Bhakti is the fruit of all spiritual practice, so all paths have to reach bhakti, and bhakti itself is for bhakti alone. So other paths that bear fruit, they will have to reach this bhakti part, this devotional aspect, as a goal in their spiritual practice. And the path of bhakti has that purpose on its own there already established. Yoga seeks the union of the jiva, which is individual soul, and the supreme soul, the Paramatman, supreme Brahman, Lord God. So it wants the same. Gyan teaches that there's no peace and nothing worthwhile in pursuing the sense objects of the world, because they are void. That only Brahman exists and all else is illusory. Gyan enlightens that self is a microcosmic form of the Supreme Self. Still the same relation. Yoga and Gyan without bhakti won't bring final emancipation. They are tools for purification so that bhakti dawns in the heart of the devotee. So it is all about the sacred task of purifying the mind, the heart. This is what allows bhakti to flood in. With impurities, it cannot come, or only an impure form of devotion. That helps, but needs to purify further and further. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it says, "For attaining me, neither yoga, nor Sankhya, nor the righteousness, nor the study of the Vedas, or austerity or renunciation captivates me as does intense devotion to me." So this doesn't mean that these things are not needed, but they are means for purification. And only with purification that pure devotion can rise. And that pure devotion is that only thing that captivates God's attention, God Himself. These are all possible means for devotion, apart from devotion itself. For many, these are the possibilities because they cannot contemplate devotion directly. But all these practices intent on devotion. Yeah, so this is not saying that those practices are not needed. But without devotion, they become meaningless. And these that cannot contemplate devotion directly, like I've explained previously, it's because of the level of their impurities. The more impurities there are, the more distance from God, even to the point of aversion and hate towards God. Further on Bhagavatam, I'm not known through yajna, tapasya, and yoga, whereas I ever shine in the untainted heart of the devotee. And again, for these same rituals, they are intended to concentrate the mind on God, to purify the mind. But I ever shine in the untainted heart of the devotee, the pure heart of the devotee. Further on Bhagavatam, as the same milk with its various qualities or attributes is differently observed through different senses, say, through the eye on its color, through the touch on its coolness or heat, or liquidity, but through the tongue, when it's drunk, all the qualities are possibly utilized. Interesting example. So also through karma, gyan, yoga, one may have partial view of the Lord, but it's only through unalloyed devotion that the full realization of God is had. Bhakti Chandrika texts contain 3 additional ones. Devotion is to be known from the Vedas. From the Vedas, all the knowledge which is there, devotion is what is to be known from there. And also from the Puranas, and also from the worship and conduct of the sages, Prithu, Prahlad, Ambarisa, Sukha, Sanaka, and Naranda. So everything which is to be learned from all of this is devotion. All rest is not important. All practices become spiritual if they are based on devotion and aim on pure devotion alone. Okay, let's continue. Do one more. Sutra 20. Even attainment of samadhi or meditation or contemplation upon God is a secondary aspect of bhakti, meaning that the success in these, achieving samadhi, the meditation, contemplation, this is secondary aspects. It is observed, meaning it is observed when devotion is coming, when it is appearing, when it is purifying. So when devotion is coming, we can see these secondary aspects. They are signs of increase of devotion. Not still on full pure devotion, but on increase of devotion. It is reached in the higher states of yoga. It refers to a state of transcendental existence when the ascetic rise above sense perception of the gross material world and is unaware of its surroundings because he perpetually remains submerged or engrossed in the contemplation of his self, which is pure consciousness, a stage that brings him an extreme sense of bliss and ecstasy. So this is talking about samadhi, and it is the being taken by that greatness, that bliss, that ecstatic bliss, but it's still, let's call it an artificial, because it will be temporary. It's for dissolving deeper impurities. But it's very similar with that supreme state, but it goes away. Similar in the sense, but it goes away. So it's not yet the supreme state, but that can only happen with the dawn of bhakti. It is a symptom that bhakti is increasing, is purifying. This also happens in the higher stages of bhakti, when the devotee becomes lost in his thoughts for his beloved Lord God. He lives virtually aloof from the physical world in which the gross body lives. So it is a little bit different, or it may be similar, because the samadhi is in complete stillness, but the body remains still. But in bhakti, this is a continuous going on experience, no matter what the body is doing. A devotee may not have samadhi, but still be deep-rooted in his love and devotion for the Lord God. Yes. So the samadhi comes from meditation, usually, and is about that way of aligning oneself with God. But in bhakti, it is about aligning all aspects. Well, the other is also, but in bhakti, this is put much more in the forefront. It is the heart of that practice. And if that is not the heart of that practice, it isn't that practice at all. But a devotee may have may not have that samadhi, but still be rooted in that love. In a way, it is like a walking samadhi. Not sure if that exists, but okay. Okay.
Tvameva mata cha pita tvameva tvameva bandhushka sakha tvameva tvameva vidya dravinam tvameva tvameva sarvam mama deva deva Tvameva sarvam mama deva deva